In 2016, Carillion reported £145 million in operating profit and £115 million in operating cash flow. Less than 2 years later, this giant British company collapsed with only £29 million left in the bank, more than £1 billion in debt, and hundreds of public projects depending on it. The company did not slowly fade away. It went from reporting profits to compulsory liquidation. And the most shocking part is that the warning was hiding inside the numbers long before the collapse. I am David, and today we will uncover how a company can report impressive profits while quietly running out of money, how Carillion made financial weakness look like success, and the numbers you should examine before trusting any profitable business. Before it collapsed, Carillion looked almost too important to fail. It was one of Britain's largest construction and facilities management companies. It built hospitals, roads, and rail projects. It maintained schools, prisons, military housing, and other essential public services. It employed tens of thousands of people around the world and held hundreds of British government contracts. Carillion was not a tiny company with an untested idea. It was a major public company performing work that governments and communities relied on every day. Its reported revenue exceeded £5 billion in 2016. It declared profits, it paid dividends, it continued winning contracts. From the outside, this looked like strength. But on January 15, 2018, Carillion entered compulsory liquidation. There was no buyer waiting to rescue it.
There was no comfortable restructuring plan. The company had reached the point where it could no longer meet its obligations. That is the first lesson of Carillion. Bankruptcy is not triggered when a company stops reporting profits. Bankruptcy happens when a company runs out of cash and nobody is willing to provide more. Profit is an accounting result. Cash is the survival test. To understand how the two can separate, imagine Carillion wins a contract to build a hospital. The total contract may be worth hundreds of millions of pounds and take several years to complete. Carillion must estimate how much the project will cost and how much profit it will eventually produce. If management expects the contract to be profitable, part of that expected profit may appear in the accounts before the entire project is finished and before all the cash is collected. That does not automatically mean anything dishonest has happened. Long-term projects require estimates, but those estimates create enormous room for optimism. If construction is delayed, materials become more expensive, defects appear, or the customer disputes a payment, the expected profit can disappear. The money that looked real in the financial statements may never arrive in the bank. This was central to Carillion's story. The company was later heavily criticized for aggressive accounting, recognizing revenue and profits based on optimistic forecasts before the cash had actually been earned. As long as the forecasts remained believable, the company could continue reporting profits.
But when the assumptions changed, expected profits became real losses. In July 2017, Carillion announced a write-down of £845 million connected to major contracts. Think about what that means. Value that had previously appeared inside the company's financial picture suddenly had to be removed. The projects had not become difficult overnight. The write-down revealed problems that had been developing for much longer. This is why profit can be dangerous when people treat it as objective truth. Profit is not simply money counted in a vault. It can include estimates, assumptions, and management judgments about the future. The further reported profit moves away from cash already collected, the more carefully it should be questioned. But Carillion's story becomes even more revealing when we examine its cash flow. In 2016, Carillion reported £145 million in operating profit and £115 million in operating cash flow. At first glance, that appears healthy. The company seemed to be converting much of its profit into cash. But analysis after the collapse highlighted the effect of reverse factoring. Reverse factoring is a financing arrangement involving a company, its suppliers, and a financial institution. The financial institution pays the supplier early. The company then owes the financial institution and pays later. For the supplier, this can be helpful. It receives cash sooner. For the company, it extends the time before cash leaves the bank. But economically, the arrangement can behave a lot like borrowing.
Carillion reportedly treated changes connected to these arrangements in a way that strengthened its reported operating cash flow. One analysis estimated that without an approximately £200 million increase in other creditors, operating cash flow for 2016 would have been negative £85 million rather than positive £115 million. The business appeared to be generating cash. In reality, delayed payments and financing were helping support the appearance. That distinction matters because a company can delay cash leaving the bank, but it cannot eliminate the obligation forever. Eventually, somebody must be paid. This creates one of the most important rules in financial analysis. Never ask only how much profit a company reports. Ask where the cash came from. Did it come from customers? Did it come from selling assets? Did it come from delaying payments to suppliers? Or did it come from borrowing money while being presented as operational strength? Not all cash flow has the same quality, just as not all profit has the same quality. Carillion also continued paying dividends while its financial position weakened. In the 5 years before its collapse, Carillion reportedly paid £376 million in dividends, while generating only £159 million in net cash from operations. Now, a dividend is supposed to distribute cash a business can afford to return to shareholders. But when a company pays out more than its operations sustainably generate, that dividend becomes a performance. It tells the market everything is fine.
Meanwhile, debt grows, suppliers wait longer, and the margin for error becomes smaller. This is where Carillion stopped being merely an accounting story and became a human one. When the company collapsed, thousands of suppliers and subcontractors were left exposed. Many were small businesses that had already completed work and were still waiting to be paid. For Carillion, delaying supplier payments helped preserve cash temporarily. For those suppliers, that same delay threatened wages, jobs, and survival. One company's working capital can be another company's crisis. And this is not only a lesson about construction. This same mechanism appears across modern business. A retailer can report profit while its cash is trapped in unsold inventory. A software company can report rapid sales growth while spending more to acquire each customer than that customer will ever generate. A manufacturer can appear successful while customers take months to pay and suppliers demand cash immediately. A company can grow itself into bankruptcy because each new sale requires cash today and produces payment much later. Growth is not automatically healthy. Bad growth consumes cash faster than the company can replace it. Carillion's scale may actually have made its problems harder to see. Large companies are often given more time, more credit, and more confidence than smaller ones. Banks may continue lending. Governments may continue awarding contracts. Suppliers may accept longer payment terms because the customer appears too established to fail. That confidence allows weakness to survive longer.
But it also allows the final failure to become much larger. Carillion's collapse happened in 2018, but the consequences are still unfolding. In January 2026, the UK's Financial Conduct Authority fined 2 former Carillion finance directors for their roles in misleading statements issued before the collapse. In May 2026, the Financial Reporting Council said both had acted recklessly and failed to act with integrity in connection with accounting information prepared before the failure. 8 years after the company disappeared, regulators were still dealing with the gap between what the business communicated and what was actually happening inside it. That recent action makes Carillion more than an old corporate disaster. It is a warning about the modern financial system, where complicated accounting, optimistic forecasts, and polished investor communications can make a fragile company look healthy for far too long. So how could an investor, employee, supplier, or business owner recognize the danger earlier? First, compare profit with operating cash flow over several years. 1 weak year may be normal. A business may be investing, building inventory, or waiting for a major customer payment. But if profit repeatedly rises while cash generation weakens, do not accept a comforting explanation without investigating it. Second, examine receivables, inventory, and payables. If customers are taking longer to pay, inventory is growing faster than sales, or suppliers are waiting longer for their money, the company may be using working capital to hide pressure. Third, examine debt and financing arrangements that may not look like traditional bank loans. Do not simply ask how much debt is shown under a heading called borrowings. Ask what obligations exist, when cash must leave, and whether financing has been used to make operating cash flow appear stronger. Fourth, question dividends and share buybacks when cash generation is weak. Returning money to shareholders can be a sign of strength, but it can also be an expensive signal designed to preserve confidence. Finally, pay attention to the language management uses. When explanations become more complicated while cash becomes scarcer, complexity may be hiding a simple truth.
The business is not producing enough real money. Carillion reported profits, won contracts, paid dividends, and performed essential work until very close to the end. But none of those things could replace cash. That is the firm lesson. Revenue can impress, profit can persuade, growth can excite, but cash decides whether the company survives. The income statement tells you what management believes the business earned. The balance sheet tells you what the company claims to own and owe. The cash flow statement tells you whether the company can keep moving. Carillion's collapse was not proof that profit is meaningless. It was proof that profit without cash, transparency, and financial discipline can become dangerously misleading. A profitable company can still go bankrupt, and sometimes the reported profit is the very thing that prevents people from seeing the bankruptcy coming. Thanks for watching.